And we're back now. I'm going to go back to Senator Schumer, who's in New York. Senator, is this going to change the way that Congress does business? What comes from this?
Well, you know, maybe in a certain sense, this terrible tragedy can importune us to take a time out, to look each of us into ourselves and remember the shared values that we really do all have. And one of the grandest of American values is debate. It can be strong debate, but it should always be civil. And when a shooting like this occurs, it sends a deep chill down the spine of the body politics. And maybe what we should be doing now is, in a certain sense, this terrible tragedy could be an opportunity for us to come together over our shared values. Hopefully that might happen.
Nancy Cortez, you're on Capitol Hill this morning. This is your beat. You spent most of yesterday talking to members. What sort of reaction are you getting from people up there?
Well, of course, there's the sadness about what has happened to Congresswoman Giffords and all the other people who were there with her that day. You know, going out into the community and meeting with constituents is the lifeblood of members of the House of Representatives. They hold hundreds of events like this. This is how they get to know their constituents. This is how they get reelected. So it's not really an option for members of Congress to barricade themselves in their offices and retreat from public life. This is what they are about. And it does make members afraid. You know, many people don't realize that almost all of the members of the House of Representatives don't have any security except for the leaders at the very top. It would be just prohibitively expensive to give these 435 members security around the clock. And so they are, in a sense, taking their lives into their hands when they go out into the community, especially in this politically charged environment where so much violent rhetoric, violent imagery is becoming commonplace, sending a message perhaps to the less stable among us that we consider our opponents not just people with whom we disagree, but actually our enemies.
I want to bring in Jan Crawford, our chief legal correspondent now. Jan, it appears that the judge was killed just because he happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm told he was coming to say hello to his friend, the congresswoman. Apparently the shooter did not know that he was a judge.
No, that's exactly right. He was just one of these kind of cruel twists of coincidence that he was there. That's what authorities are reporting now. But I think it's important to also remember, as Congressman Hoyer said, when you think about threats that are escalating, judges are not immune from this either. The Justice Department released a report last year that showed threats have sharply escalated, more than doubling in the past 6 years. And it could be, they speculate, as a result of some of the internet-fueled talk and passion. You're also seeing that directed to judges. And of course, Judge Rohl also was a target of death threats just 2 years ago when he issued an unpopular ruling for some illegal immigrants who were trying to sue an Arizona rancher. He got security detail. So this is not something that's just an isolated target to politicians in this day and age. Judges, too, are coming under attack.
Bob, I understand you have just gotten some new information.
Well, we should say that Loughner has made threats in the past. The sheriff last night made a point of saying police knew this guy. He had made these threats general in nature, not specific. He had not been arrested for them, so they didn't have anything that was actionable. But we do know from our sources and from our national security analyst, Juan Zarate, that Loughner had an interaction once before with Congresswoman Giffords back in 2007, where he apparently posed a question to her, kind of a benign question. She answered the question. He didn't find it acceptable, and he didn't like the answer. And in the time since then, investigators believe perhaps he was tracking her and targeting her in a very loose way. But we want to be careful here to say that, as far as we know, there was not specific intelligence that he intended to do anything yesterday. It's not like someone missed a blinking red light here.
What do we expect, Jan, on the judicial front? Is there going to be a move now to see that the federal judges get more security?
Well, there already have been, and obviously some retired justices, Justice O'Connor, have really pushed this in talking about judicial independence, worried about these threats. This all really was fueled back in 2005, Bob, if you remember that tragic case out of Chicago when the husband and mother of a federal judge there were murdered after she had ruled against a defendant, refused to allow a man's lawsuit to go forward. He killed her husband and mother. So we saw the concern really began to kind of coalesce around the judges at that point. Hundreds of judges now get 24-hour protection, and others who've not gotten these direct specific threats have really changed their lives. They drive to work different routes every day to avoid being followed. They've installed security systems in their homes. So this is an ongoing concern for the judiciary.
Bob, if I can add, I talked to Mark Kelly, Gabby's husband, who's an astronaut. Very angry about the level of angry rhetoric that he believes incites people, not only if this Loughner targeted Gabby in particular, but to target those in authority, whether they be judges, members of Congress, local officials, generically, to make their anger pointedly heard. And of course, this allows that. We're going to have to find out exactly what the motivation here was. But I think all of us, as Chuck Schumer was saying, in politics, in the media, in the public square, fashion our rhetoric so that it does not incite but informs, and yes, can differ, but can differ in a way that is civil and consistent with our democracy's efforts.
About 30 seconds left. Senator Schumer, do you see a time when congressmen, members of Congress, are going to have security wherever they go, as sometimes federal judges now do?
Well, we obviously have to keep people safe, that's for sure. But there also has to be a balance, because one of the hallmarks of our democracy is being able to go out and meet people and hear what they have to say and let them bring their grievances for us. That was part of the First Amendment that Congresswoman Giffords read on the floor. So we're going to have to look into it, but we're going to have to remember there has to be a balance.
All right. I want to thank all of you so much for coming to the broadcast this morning.